Someone is testing you right now. You feel it in your chest before you hear it in their words. It might be a cutting remark disguised as a joke, a subtle dig that lands like a blow. Or perhaps it is loud, a direct assault designed to make you feel small. Your body reacts instantly. Your heart rate climbs. Your face grows hot. The urge to defend yourself rises like a tide. You want to explain, to fire back, to make them finally understand. But this is the trap. The moment you react, the moment you lose your composure, that is the moment they win. Toxic people do not need to be right. They do not need to be smarter or stronger. They only need you to lose your footing. Your reaction is the trophy they seek. Your frustration is the fuel that keeps them coming back. Every time you take the bait, you hand over a piece of your dignity without even realizing it. If you are tired of feeling hollowed out by interactions that should not matter, subscribe to this channel. This is not just content. It is a quiet place where you can rebuild what difficult people try to dismantle. Subscribing is a small act of self-respect, a promise to yourself that you are done handing your peace over to people who do not deserve it. Here is the truth that changes everything. Self-respect is not something you receive from others. It is not a reward for being agreeable or for achieving enough. Self-respect is something you build quietly and consistently, regardless of how others behave. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. They saw that the external world, including difficult people, would never stop being difficult. The only variable you can truly control is yourself. This is not a passive shift. It is not about ignoring bad behavior or being the bigger person in a way that feels like swallowing glass. It is a real, active shift that requires you to see the dynamic clearly, understand why it affects you, and build something inside yourself that toxic behavior cannot dismantle. 1. The first truth you must accept is that your reaction is the prize they seek. Toxic behavior operates on a simple mechanical principle. It finds the gap between who you want to be and who you are afraid you are, and it pries that gap open. The criticism is not random. It is targeted. The comment about your career lands hard because it hits a doubt you already carry. The dismissal of your feelings stings because deep down, you are hoping to be heard. When you react, when you snap back or try to explain yourself, you confirm that the lever works. You show them exactly where your power leaks. The Stoic response is to deny them that feedback. Your composure is not silence out of fear. It is a deliberate choice to keep your inner world under your own control, not theirs. 2. You have been seeking respect in the wrong place. You have been looking outward, waiting for the toxic person to finally see your worth, to acknowledge the line they keep crossing. You wait for the moment of clarity where they treat you the way you deserve. That waiting is costing you more than any insult ever could. Epictetus, who was born a slave, built a philosophy on a single distinction. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. What others think, say, and do is not yours. Your judgments, your values, and your responses are entirely yours. When you grasp this, truly feel it, it does not feel like surrender. It feels like release. You stop outsourcing your self-concept to the opinion of someone who does not respect you. 3. Explaining yourself to a toxic person is a game you are guaranteed to lose. Think about the last time you tried to reason with someone who had already decided what to think about you. You laid out your points carefully. You were patient and articulate. They dismissed it, twisted it, or used it against you. You walked away feeling worse. Not because you failed to explain well enough, but because explaining was never going to work. The conversation was never about truth. It was about control. You were playing by rules that were designed for you to lose. The Stoic practice here is to stop offering justification to people who have demonstrated they are not listening in good faith. You do not owe anyone a debate about your choices. 4. Your identity must become non-negotiable. Cato the Younger, a Roman senator and a model of lived stoicism, faced insults and mockery constantly. He dressed plainly and refused bribes while his peers mocked him. When Julius Caesar's allies insulted him openly in the Senate, Cato did not flinch. He did not perform dignity. He embodied it. He stood and delivered his argument as if the insult had never occurred. The insult had no surface to stick to. This is the goal. Your identity is not something that gets redefined by how someone else speaks to you. When you internalize this, the toxic behavior does not disappear, but it loses its grip because it no longer has anything real to grab onto. 5. You must learn to separate the sting from the story. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The suffering is not just in what the toxic person does. It is in what their behavior means to you. It is the story you build around it. It is the proof you think it offers that you are not enough, not worthy, or not seen. That story is where the real damage lives. You cannot stop the initial sting. You are human. But you can refuse to write the second chapter where you internalize their contempt. You can see the behavior for what it is, a projection of their own chaos, not a reflection of your value. Take a breath. If your chest felt tight reading these scenarios, you are not alone. The exhaustion of navigating difficult people is real, and it lives in the body. Subscribing to this channel is a way of marking that exhaustion and choosing to address it. Turn on notifications. It is a small signal to yourself that you are ready to handle these moments differently, with clarity instead of chaos. 6. When facing public humiliation, use the power of the pause. In a group setting, a toxic person makes a comment at your expense. It might be framed as a joke, but it lands as a diminishment. Everyone hears it. The instinct is to respond immediately, to defend yourself or match their energy. This is the most dangerous moment. They have pulled you onto their stage. The Stoic response is composure as a choice. Let the comment land. Do not rush to fill the silence. Make eye contact. Calm, unhurried. You can say nothing, or you can offer a quiet, direct redirect. That is an interesting perspective, delivered without sarcasm. Then you move on. You do not circle back. You win the moment privately by refusing to let them dictate your state. 7. When dealing with the constant critic, stop explaining and start acknowledging. This person has an opinion on everything you do, and it is rarely positive. They colonize your internal monologue. You start second-guessing decisions before you make them. Epictetus taught that your internal narrative is yours. No one else is entitled to author it. When you keep engaging with their criticism, hoping this time will be different, you hand them the pen. The practice is to answer their criticism with acknowledgement rather than justification. I hear that you see it that way. Full stop. No elaboration, no defense. You reclaim your authority every time you resist the urge to justify yourself to someone who will not value the explanation. 8. When facing the emotional provocateur, delay is your greatest remedy. This person knows which buttons to push. They bring up your insecurities and frame conversations to destabilize you. They want you to react. Seneca taught that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not suppression, which pressurizes the emotion, but delay. Insert a gap between the provocation and your response. In that gap lives your freedom. Slow your breathing. Buy yourself 3 seconds. Ask internally, does responding serve me here? Frequently, the answer is no. Maintain your physical composure. Let the provocation dissolve without a host. An emotional reaction is oxygen to fire. Remove the oxygen and the fire dies. 9. When dealing with the boundary tester, state your values, not your ultimatums. Some toxic people work incrementally. They violate small limits, arriving late or dismissing your needs, testing what you will accept. Over time, you realize you are living somewhere you never agreed to live. Stoic boundary setting is not about confrontation. It is about knowing your values so clearly that the boundary becomes obvious to you first. You state it calmly, once. Then you act consistently, regardless of their response. If the boundary is not respected, you take action, distancing or ending the conversation, not as punishment, but as a natural consequence of your values. That is not cold. That is clarity. 10. Toxic people are mirrors of your own internal work. This is the part of the journey most people never reach. It requires looking at what the behavior shows you about yourself. Every time a comment lands, a dismissal stings, or a boundary gets crossed and you stay silent, you are seeing a precise map of where your self-respect still needs work. Not because they are right, but because their power over you reveals where you still depend on external approval. Marcus Aurelius used his reactions as diagnostic tools. When he felt irritation, he asked why it was there. You can do the same. What exactly stung? Was it a comment about your work? Is there a part of you that already doubts yourself there? This is not self-blame. This is self-knowledge. 11. You are not responsible for how people treat you. You are responsible for who you remain while they are treating you that way. This is the single principle that changes everything. There is a version of self-help that places the burden on the victim to just not let it affect you. That is a lie. Being treated with contempt does affect you. It is supposed to affect you. You are a person, not a wall. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to remain yourself fully, consistently, under pressure, while feeling everything. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from a trusted general. He responded with measured sorrow, not rage. His response was an expression of who he already was. That is the standard. The deeper mechanism at play here is your biology working against your philosophy. You are wired for connection. When someone you interact with regularly treats you with contempt, your nervous system registers it as a threat. This is not just emotional, it is physiological. Your cortisol rises, your thinking narrows. You enter a defensive state where clear-headedness is nearly impossible. Toxic people, consciously or not, understand this. They repeat the behavior because it works. It keeps you off balance. An off-balance person is easier to control and dismiss. This is why your reaction is so valuable to them. It confirms their power. Stoicism does not ask you to be a robot. It asks you to insert a conscious space between the stimulus and your response. In that space, you reclaim your biological autonomy. You stop being a puppet of your nervous system and start being the operator of your own mind. Here is the unexpected angle. Toxic people, as damaging as they are, can inadvertently accelerate your growth. They pressure test your character. They expose the gaps in your armor where you still seek validation. If you approach these encounters with a philosopher's eye rather than a wounded one, they become some of the most useful experiences of your life. This is not a comfortable reframe. It does not make their behavior acceptable, but it means you do not have to leave these encounters empty-handed. You can take the lesson and leave the pain. You can use their chaos as the raw material for your own unshakable stability. You did not come this far in life to be undone by someone else's chaos. The journey you are on is not about winning arguments. It is about becoming a person who no longer needs to argue to know their worth. You are building a fortress, not of walls, but of quiet, deliberate choices. Every time you pause instead of react, you build it. Every time you decline to defend yourself to someone who refuses to understand, you build it. You are breaking the old pattern of handing your peace to whoever asks for it. The respect you have been looking for was never going to come from the people who withheld it. It was always going to be built inside you. Walk accordingly.